Now, the Prime Minister is very good at one thing in particular. He's very good at winning elections, isn't he? Mayoral elections, the Brexit referendum, and of course that spectacular landslide in December 2019. So he's good at winning elections, but he seems to struggle with that bit in between, you know, the running of the country. Confused government messaging and policy during the pandemic, rolling over to the sage scientists, allowing Olympic levels of sleaze to happen on his own backbenches, not firing the likes of his former chief advisor Dominic Cummings for that ill-fated sight test in Barnard Castle, not firing Matt Hancock for his closed-circuit snogathon, not replacing the Home Secretary Priti Patel, on whose watch thousands of illegal migrants are entering the country via the English Channel every week. What's infuriating about this man is that there are two Borises. Brexit Boris, buccaneering, confident, optimistic and getting the job done. But then there is his alter ego, Jellyfish Johnson. Round, tentacles everywhere, no backbone. Brexit Boris will unquestionably triumph at the next election in 2 or 3 years' time. But Jellyfish Johnson, a man bobbing along, sent in different directions by the waves of political misfortune, could see a hung parliament or worse. For the first time in what feels like 300 years, Labour are now ahead in the polls. This is a statistic only significant because it hasn't happened more often in the last couple of years. But who could be surprised given that the Labour leader, Keir Starmer, whilst clearly a nice and decent man, was the architect of Labour's hated second referendum Brexit policy. And as a leader so lacking in principles and conviction, he makes Jeremy Corbyn look like Winston Churchill. And I don't want to be unkind, but he's so lacking in charisma, he couldn't get laid at an orgy. But it's still a warning sign to the Prime Minister that he's got to raise his game. I've always given him credit for Freedom Day on the 19th of July, but he must resist calls for further Plan B measures, which many bonkers boffins are still calling for. And he's got to move on from winning the country to now running it. Strengthening our borders and tackling the evil trade in human beings, which is seeing thousands cross the Channel every week. If that's not a humanitarian crisis, I don't know what is. It's also a national security crisis too. He's got to let the economy recover by promising businesses that there will be no further COVID measures and no needless borrowing or tax hikes. He's got to make sure that GPs grant face-to-face appointments for those who want it. We pay our taxes. It's not too much to ask. We're all for saving the planet, aren't we? Looking after the environment, but not ruinous eco-extremism whilst China, India and the USA continue to do their worst. And Boris has got to stand up for traditional British values. He has an opportunity to call out hateful, hard-left political correctness. He must tackle the toxic scourge of wokery, which is currently performing a land grab of our language, our art, our culture, our institutions and our history. And it would help if he could admit publicly something that he has struggled to do so far, which is that only women have a cervix. Blimey, if anyone has a deep knowledge of the female anatomy, surely it's Boris. But I'm keeping faith with this election-winning machine. I've never been his biggest fan. I'm no Boris cheerleader, but we all need him to succeed. And the so-called culture wars will be decisive in future elections across the Western world. The people have had enough of being told what to say and what to think all the time. They've had enough of Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, Fawlty Towers and the Rolling Stones being cancelled. They want freedom of thought back. They want freedom of speech back. So, Prime Minister, you must fight this battle. Go woke, no vote. You have been warned. This is GB News.